We imagine the internet as an unkillable machine, a decentralized web built to survive the radioactive aftermath of a nuclear strike. But the web has weak points. Modern governments can sequentially power down entire nations, plunging millions of people into digital darkness in an instant. This occurs with terrifying frequency. In 2019, the Iranian government disconnected 80 million people for a full week to silence domestic protests. In 2016, Turkey aggressively throttled social media platforms during a military coup, rendering the web virtually useless at the most critical moment. Executing these blackouts is technically simple. A country's internet traffic flows through a small number of centralized hubs called internet exchange points. If a government wants silence, they simply order those providers to switch off their routers. Domestic blackouts cause localized economic damage, but the stakes escalate when an integrated nation weaponizes its connection to the rest of the world. To see how a localized blackout can infect the globe, we have to look at the Border Gateway Protocol, or BGP. This is the Internet's global directory, constantly announcing the fastest routes for data to travel between different networks. BGP operates on blind trust. It lacks built-in checks for authenticity or prefix ownership. A network accepts new pathways instantly, assuming every other network is telling the truth. If a country like Russia attempts to aggressively filter BGP to isolate its domestic internet, that trust becomes a liability. A single misconfigured update will be accepted by neighboring networks and rapidly cascade across the globe, hijacking traffic and sending it into digital dead ends. China avoids this risk because they walled off their state-run telecommunications in the early days of the web. This allowed their ecosystem to grow organically while remaining structurally isolated from the global internet. For most other nations, the software layer is a fragile house of cards. A single rogue update can propagate worldwide, rerouting traffic and paralyzing the global banking systems that process trillions in daily transactions. Beyond the invisible software layer we just explored, the actual physical internet resides down on the cold, dark floor of the ocean. Up to 99% of international data traffic travels through roughly 500 submarine fiber-optic cables. These critical lines sit exposed and unprotected on the sandy seabed. Because of economic efficiency, these cables cluster together into narrow maritime passages called digital chokepoints. This creates dangerous single points of failure where dozens of cables run side by side. These bottlenecks are concentrated in a few high-risk areas, specifically the Suez Canal, the Strait of Malacca, and the Red Sea. In hybrid warfare, a rogue state can use submersibles or coordinate a commercial ship to violently drag its anchor, snapping multiple seabed cables simultaneously. Physical sabotage at a single geographical choke point could instantly blind military coordination, freeze international banking settlements, and trigger continental internet blackouts. Some argue that new satellite networks like Starlink can serve as a viable emergency backup if these subsea cables are completely cut. But academic analysis shows that satellite networks lack the bandwidth to replace deep-sea fiber. They also carry unique vulnerabilities, remaining susceptible to signal jamming, spoofing, and DDoS attacks. Recovery from physical sabotage is agonizingly slow. Repairing deep-sea lines requires specialized vessels that often take weeks to splice the fiber back together. So, can one country break the global internet? Yes. Reliance on clustered hardware and trust-based software gives a single nation the leverage to blind military coordination and paralyze global financial markets. The Internet's reliance on borderless trust and voluntary interconnection was once its greatest strength. It is now its most dangerous geopolitical vulnerability.